Welcome to Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing podcast. Each week, John Kasman interviews multifamily and marketing experts to teach you how to find the best places to invest, attract investors, and grow your portfolio. You are listening to Target Market Insights with your host, John Kasman.
Hey, this is John Kasman, host of Target Market Insights, the multifamily marketing show. Thank you for joining today's episode. Now, if you have not already, make sure you leave us a rating and review. That way we get some great feedback that can help us make the show even better and stronger to address the issues and challenges you want to learn more about. Today, we're going to be talking to an emerging power couple in Chicago, Nicole de Leon and RJ de Leon. Nicky and RJ are experienced real estate investors with a background in property rehab, property stabilization, partnerships, and property management. Now, Nicky is the co-founder of NVR Properties. She also is the co-organizer of the Real Estate InvestHer meetup in Chicago, as well as the Chicago Multifamily Club. RJ is the founder of EJC Partners. He's the co-founder of NVR Properties, and he's a broker with Care Realty. Let's welcome to the show, Nicky and RJ.
Hey, John.
Hey, John. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I should also clarify that these are two good friends of ours, and we run the Chicago Multifamily Club together. And I really love their story. I want to talk to them a little bit more today. Nicky and RJ, I gave a very, very brief background of some of the things that you've done. Why don't you take a minute or two and give us more context and background of your experience?
Sure, I'll let Nicky start.
Yeah, so we met back working our 9-to-5s at Career Builder and both found out that we had a love for real estate. And with that, we, during our dating phase, decided to jump headfirst into multifamily and buy a 3-unit together. So we started our journey house hacking, and then from there have been working to really grow our portfolio here in Chicago through smaller multifamily properties. RJ has taken the leap into full-time real estate and started his construction company. And now we're working on growing our partnerships to get into those larger multifamily buildings by finding larger deals and working on syndicating them as well.
Man, sounds like the love of real estate helped bring you two together, right? So that's an amazing story. I got to tell you, though, starting with that 3-unit that you house hacked, was there any concern? I mean, you guys were dating and I'm sure you liked each other a lot, but was there any concern that, you guys were going into this 3-unit and there was a commitment there? And if something didn't work out with the relationship, what would happen to this investment?
Absolutely. I got to say that it was a little nerve-wracking. We actually moved into our owner-occupied within the first year of dating. So, I got to say she took me out of my going to the nightclub phase by hitting me with that question, what do you want for your future? And I was like, oh, man. It's a serious one. So, yeah, there was a lot of concerns because I had a condo in Printers Row, and we moved out of the Printers Row condo, rented that while we moved into this new owner-occupied that was in disrepair. There was a lot of work, deferred maintenance to be done here. So it was a little scary. There was a lot of concerns financially, construction-wise, organization-wise. How are we going to do this? What's in our future?
Yeah.
So for
idea what we were doing either. So.
No idea what you're doing, but you decided to do it anyway, right? So what did you learn from that experience that maybe you would pass on some advice to maybe another couple that's looking to jump into a house hack out of the gate?
Yeah, so I think number one, numbers don't lie. So we were really careful with the properties that we were looking at, and we were really heavy on the analysis. One of the things too that we didn't do was have analysis paralysis. I know that's a huge thing when you're first starting to invest, and we took that leap of faith. We started making offers right when the numbers were making sense and didn't take our foot off the gas until we got something accepted. The first property we did get accepted, it actually turned out that it had massive amounts of termite damage. So that was what we thought too big of a project for our first property. But this one, deferred maintenance, it had, quite a bit of rehab, but it seemed palatable for us. So definitely run the numbers. They don't lie. Start making offers. most likely, especially in this market today, it's not going to get accepted right away unless you're putting over asking, at least in Chicago. I don't know a ton about other markets. And then also I would say learn how to divvy up the roles. That's taken us a long time, but we're now in a good place where we understand our strengths and weaknesses and we really play off those well. And it helps us get more done collectively as a group, as opposed to everyone trying to do everything that they can at once.
Right. No, it sounds great. I mean, to recap, you said the first thing you did was run the numbers, trust the numbers, make offers moving forward, right? So if you're running the numbers, you've done your analysis, do not fall into that analysis paralysis. Trust the work you've done. Go ahead and make the offers. If you get one accepted, that's the time to go in, do your inspection, understand during your due diligence, is there anything that may cause us a problem? On that first deal you mentioned, you found out that there was significant termite damage and that remedying that was going to be too much work to take on for your first project. So you backed out. But as you got into the next deal, you kind of prepared for the amount of investment you needed to do to rehab the property, fix it up, and you went ahead and moved forward. And I think that's really key too, especially right now. There's a lot of stuff that, we have to be mindful of, but you have to make offers. Nothing is going to happen unless you make an offer. You can't invest in real estate by just looking at stuff. Even underwriting deals, that's great. That's the first step, right? It's to underwrite. But if you don't submit an offer, you certainly won't win the bid or get the opportunity. So if you like a property, even if the numbers don't seem like they're going to work, make an offer at a number that makes sense to you and see what happens from there. So great points there. You talked about last, you said, you learned how to divvy up the roles, figure out who does what. That's a challenge I think a lot of partners have, whether they're a couple or just two people who are partnering up. How did you go down that path to say, okay, this is my role in the company and the business. This is your role in the company?
So that is all following your gut instinct, what you love to do versus what you know how to do. 100%. Because my background, I'm an accountant. I actually was an accountant for Jones Lang LaSalle. I've done commercial real estate accounting. I've done it all. So when it came to analysis, I said, oh, this is my thing. I'm going to take the numbers. I'm the finance guy. I'm the accounting guy. And day in, day out, I started to realize how much disinterest I had in that and how much I actually really hated it. And she loved it. And she created these amazing Excel sheets. And we still use those analysis underwriting sheets to this day. And we've shared them with other larger partners that have hundreds of doors. And they're like, this is amazing. Like, we're going to use that template to move forward with certain projects. And I was like, that's amazing. I would have never been able to do that. And then for me, when it came to the construction, for the first, I actually took a hiatus from corporate. So spent 7 months rehabbing this property myself, getting savvy, really making sure the numbers were working. And I think that's really important thing too. So once you get into it, there's a whole bunch of things in construction that will pop up and just hit you in the face. And you have to be savvy to be able to overcome that, to still remain within budget. So thankfully, we're able to remain in budget. And that's because a lot of networking, a lot of people. I called up the Windows guy. I worked for him when I was 18. I called him up and he said, RJ, of course, I remember you. I'm coming right up. So it's also about the relationships, the networking that you have to be able to pull on that, the support that you've built throughout your life. It all leads to where you are today.
Man, that's really strong insights there. First and foremost, follow your passion. Just because you have a background in something and the technical skills and know-how doesn't mean that's what you should be doing. If you don't enjoy it, find either a partner or someone else who does, because it will drain you if you are doing a task that you are not passionate about. It's one of the hardest things about investing is people feel like they have to do everything themselves. And ultimately, you won't move as quickly as you need to because you are the bottleneck. You're holding it down. You're not passionate about it. You're not excited about it. So I'm happy that you all recognize that even though you technically had the background, RJ, Nicky had more passion for it. So it allowed you to really balance that role and responsibility. And as you took that hiatus, made your, focus really on the renovation itself, tapping into your network, leveraging the skills, getting hands-on experience, and really learning construction ground up as opposed to from a book or, theory from a class. You learn by getting your hands dirty on your own project. And now you've launched EJC Partners. Tell me a little bit more about kind of that transition from working on your own projects to ultimately launching a construction business to help other people.
Sure. Well, as we all know, being in real estate investing, the number one thing that can be the largest variable is construction. Whether you got a bad crew or a good crew, it's going to make or break your deal because you got to stay within those budgets. So the number one thing that I recognized immediately is, there's all these houses out there. We do not have the crew. We do not have the support system to be able to take on these projects that we want to do. At the same time, I got a lot of intrinsic value out of seeing a project start to finish. I loved it, being able to see where you begin and where you end. So I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to move forward with this number one thing that I have a passion for. And out of bad circumstances, not going to go into that. Bad circumstances, taking on jobs that I thought was going to be great, ended up being terrible. I ended up launching a construction company. I met a couple guys. I said, hey, if I could keep you busy, do you want to start a company with me? They said yes. All of a sudden, a year, 2 years down the line, I've kept them busy every single day, except for maybe 2 weeks. It's really stressful when you have people that need to take care of families. But I've always been the networking guy. I've always been the sales guy. So, I get the jobs. They teach me hands-on. I learn every single day. So that's how we made the transition. Seeing that there was that bottleneck, that there was that gap. We had to fill it. And who else to trust but yourself? Having the passion there, being able to be passionate about what I'm doing, but also having that support system again. It all goes back to having the people, knowing the people that are going to carry you from where you are to where you want to be.
Yeah. The thing that's really interesting to me, and as I've known you for a few years, and it's not until this conversation that it really clicked for me about that transition because, and I'll play this back the way I heard it. You recognize the challenge in the entire business model, right? And when you go to contractors, these are individuals, you're kind of, dealing with them. Some can be shady, some can be great, some can be unreliable. There are a lot of different challenges there. But for you to find good people to work with and to keep them busy, essentially what you've done is say, listen, I believe in me as the business owner, the operator, and I believe in my skills to identify great workers, contractors, skilled professionals. But let me be in a position to run the operations because I can run a profitable company that is able to get work, keep people busy. And I may not know every single thing there is to know about construction, but I can hire the team around me. And we always talk about, 3 C's when it comes to attracting capital are confidence, credibility, and connections. And I would say that those 3 C's really apply more broadly to business to be successful. And in this case, you recognize that, hey, I have connections, I have confidence because I know I'm going to put in the work. I know I've educated myself. I've done it myself for 8 months on my own properties before even thinking about working or helping somebody else. But that credibility comes from building a team that actually has years of experience. And then you're actually getting something out of working with them. As well as keeping them employed and keeping them busy. So, I think that's a great way to think about business, whether you're looking to work with a contractor or maybe you found great employees, but the contractor or the company themselves are unreliable. Maybe you can put yourself in that position to head your own crew, drive it that way, as opposed to simply relying on a contractor to show up whenever they're supposed to. Because that's one of the big challenges that I think a lot of people face. I get those questions all the time. And they ask me, how do I find a great contractor? I'm going to ask you that question. How do investors find great contractors?
So the number one thing that I want to say there is always follow your gut. I think I've made that a theme. follow your gut. It's really about how you get along with somebody, how you feel they're communicating with you, because that's going to translate into how they're going to perform on your job. Do they show up on time? Do they call you on time? Do you have a rapport there? Because that's super important, because, while you're in this honeymoon phase, that's one thing. But once you get into the weeds, they open up a wall and they say, hey, this is going to be $10,000 more. Were they clear in communication that this construction project has a lot of variables? If I open up this wall, if I do this, if I do X, it could lead to larger things. And how do they communicate that with you? Do they show up? Do they answer your phone calls? Because that's very, very important. And that's one thing I pride myself in. Sometimes maybe I'm not so good on the front end, but once you're in a project with me, call me anytime, day and night. Nicky knows I'm in bed at 11 o'clock at night, and the client will call me and I'll say, hey, what's the issue? All right, talk me through it. I can or can't diagnose now, but I will come out and we will take care of that for you. So right now we have a punch list. My guys are spread out because I just finished a project. I thought we'd be done, but the owner's a little particular. So he's like, my toilet seat's angled a little wrong. This isn't so perfect. And, I answered the call and I said, hey, I'll send out a guy, whether it comes out of my pocket or not. That goodwill carrying forward really does wonders for the business.
Yeah, it sounds like trusting your gut's really, really important for the business. And it's not just intrinsically, it's like understanding the groundwork for the relationship. Are they responsive? Are they explaining the different variables that could change your costs? Some of those different things that go into play where, you go in, you get one quote, you get one bid, you get into the project, the numbers change. A lot of times investors throw their hands up and say, oh, this contractor misled me. Where it sounds like, maybe there's more work on both sides that needs to happen to make sure both parties are moving forward. Let me ask you this, RJ, and then I want to switch to Nikki. I've got a few questions for her. Just to close up this on the contractors, what's a question that you wish investors, because you've been on both sides of this now, what's a question that investors should be asking contractors but rarely do?
Well, I think it's a lot to do with the variables, right? Because a lot of times there's a disconnect or dissonance between what a contractor thinks and what a homeowner thinks. So what I constantly tell other contractors, or what I constantly consult my clients with, is you have to understand that there's two different viewpoints. So as a contractor, just because I know it doesn't mean that my client's going to know it. And it goes in all forms of life, every single bit of communication. Just because I think one way doesn't mean that Nicky understands my thoughts completely. So you got to think about that from relationship based with your contractor, with whoever it is. Because a lot of times that there's a disconnect. Oh, they didn't do X, Y, Z. You got to cross your I's and dot your T's when it comes to the contract. Actual contract, actual scope of work. If it's not in there and you got a bad contractor, you don't have a good relationship, or you've created such a strain, the contractor is going to cut his losses and say, hey, I don't need to deal with this. I got a bad client. When, maybe the client did talk to him and he was running on 5 different jobs that day and he forgot those minor details. So he didn't put it in there and he didn't price it in there. So then that's his fault. So it's really clear communication. And when it comes down to it for the client and the contractor, make sure you're crossing your I's, dotting your T's when it comes to the scope of work, because there's disconnect. Just because I say, hey, I'm going to assemble your kitchen cabinets. Well, I didn't say I was going to put hardware on the doors, or I didn't say I was going to put the countertops on. It's assembling your kitchen cabinets. I said kitchen cabinets and tile. That's it. Because there's a lot of different subsets when it comes to construction. Just because you're hanging cabinets, you are not a countertop specialist. And a lot of people will think that way. A lot of clients will think that way. Well, he's doing my cabinets, he's got to do the countertops. No, that's a completely different subcontractor. We don't handle that. I don't cut granite. I don't cut stone. I don't lay, sinks in there. So it's really about the communication. Again, it all comes down to the scope of work and the contract.
Yeah, and it sounds like, if I'm playing it back, because I mean, I will tell you, the first rehab project I did, I ran into a lot of those things, and I was just, like on the other, even listening to you, it's like I'm sure people right now are listening, like, what the hell do you mean you're not gonna put the door handles on? You hang the cabinets, you're not gonna, like, of course, like that's assumed, right? Like, wouldn't people naturally assume that if you're renovating a kitchen, that if you hang cabinets, you're going to put on new handles, right? Like, I'm not going to have cabinets without a countertop. And the point you're making is you need to make sure that there's clarity, because even if it's assumed that, yes, maybe it's in there from a quote standpoint, that timeline might be different because you are dealing with a different subcontractor. That's a different skill set completely. So you do need to just make sure you're getting clarity both on pricing as well as timeline on all of these different things, and don't make assumptions. And sometimes, I mean, for us, one of the things that I learned was we just have to walk through the entire project and ask. And sometimes we get side eyes. But I'd rather get a side eye than to make an assumption and then be disappointed that something wasn't included in the price. There's a quote that I love, and it says, the price of clarity is the risk of insult. And that's just a great thing. Maybe it may sound insulting to ask someone, hey, you're gonna put the door handles on, right? And they're gonna look at you and say, they may say, of course we do the door handles. Like, yeah, I might sound crazy, but in this scenario, you've seen it happen. I mean, you've been on both sides. I've been on both sides, where you've seen it happen enough times where there's something that there just isn't clarity, because contractors also are very literal. If you do a scope of work and it's not on that document, there's a chance they may not do it or they didn't account for it. So you certainly want to ask that question about, hey, you guys are going to do this, or you're going to do that, or you're going to do this, cleanup. There's something where, at the end of a project, there's my definition of, clean and ready to rent. And there's contractor clean, right? Contractors like, hey, we cleaned up the stuff we did, but maybe they didn't clean the tub. Maybe the tub is still dirty with dust and debris or whatnot. So, you have to make sure you're clear on what they're going to do and what else you're going to have to finish up.
I'm working on my side eye, by the way, because I catch myself doing that sometimes. I'm like, all right. I give side eyes all the time. I was like, I hope they didn't catch that.
Yeah, you got to work on it. Nicky, I mean, you've supported him on the construction stuff, but I know that when it comes to a lot of the partnerships, you're actually the lead. You take the lead on a lot of the communications and developing some of the opportunities. When we think about partnerships, that word has a lot of different ways it can go. I mean, you and I partnered together on the Chicago Multifamily Club. I know you work with other investors as well. Can you just talk to me about partnerships holistically? What's your approach to partnerships?
Yeah, so with partnerships, I'd say it's a two-way street, right? So you're looking to gain something out of it, but you also need to give back. And so that's what I've been looking for. Like, where can I give to others and where can I learn from others? And so our partnerships across the board vary. I mean, there's some people where I'm partnering on just mentoring them. There's a lot of women that I work with to help them understand real estate, get them their first property. I'm in the process of getting my broker's license, so I should have it by next week. So have a few clients from that perspective, which with COVID, it's given me time to do that. But then also there's partnerships where we're working on a rehab right now in Bronzeville. And we've partnered with another couple that we actually met through you, John. And what we have done within that partnership is we found the deal. We have the funding available for it. They had, moving into the partnership, the GC long-term expertise in ground-up developments, which we knew we needed more insight into that in order to get this deal done, because it is a full gut rehab. We had the property at one point down to just like the shell of the building. It's been a lot of work. But from there, we brought the property, we brought the money, and they brought some additional expertise as well as analysis backing the their husband, or the husband in the couple, is amazing with Excel. And so that was an awesome partnership. We've learned so much, and we hope we brought a lot to the table too. I think RJ definitely has, with the amount of work he's done on the property. But when it comes to building these larger multifamily properties and partnerships around those, we've really taken the opportunity to add on more work for us, because we know within these partnerships, we don't have the expertise. So what can we bring to the table? And that's what I'm always thinking about. What can I do to bring value to these people who have years of expertise in multifamily investing and syndication? And with that, I've been doing a ton of analysis. Deal flow has been kind of slow, as I'm sure you know. So not as much deal sourcing, but lots of deal analysis. I'm spending tons of time just going over the numbers, making sure that these deals work. And in some of the opportunities, it's been looking at zoning, looking at other things where they don't necessarily have the time to do that. They're the ones who are talking to the lenders to see if we can actually take on this deal. So it's finding that area where I can support these people that I really want to partner with. And that's what we've been doing now, again, with these larger multifamily opportunities. And right now we're in the process of becoming a GP on one. It's 2 18-unit buildings in Bronzeville, value add opportunities. We had some LP slots available. I don't know if we do anymore, but it's such a great opportunity, and we're so thankful to be a part of it. But it's because we're able and willing to do the dirty work, I guess you'd say, and the busy work.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really resonates and I think has been a theme so far is the amount of sweat equity you're willing to put in. You know, you talked about that first 3-unit, renovating it yourself, getting your hands dirty. We've talked about, you know, RJ, the work you've done working with, you know, clients and finding business and keeping those contractors busy and keeping, you know, the work flowing. And Nikki, you talked about partnerships and really trying to serve other people, figuring out how can you add value, whether that is, you know, in a role where you're putting in the work, you're bringing the money to the table, but you guys are doing you're putting in a lot of sweat equity. And I think as a younger person, that's one of the biggest values that young people have, right? Is if you don't have the experience, if you don't have maybe all the capital, what you lack there, you may make up in time and the ability to invest sweat equity. I get a lot of people that talk to me about, you know, helping out or doing something like that. You guys have always stood above and beyond most other people, though. Why do you think that is? Well, I mean, when you come to investors or other experienced people and you offer to assist or help, what makes you stand out versus maybe the next person who offers to help out?
I'd say honestly that we actually do what we say we're going to do. There's so many people that come to me now that, you know, I have so many years of experience under my belt and say, what can I do to help? And, you know, I could think of a million things, but if you can't even get on a phone call with me for 2 weeks, how are you really going to help me and bring value to me? So just experiencing that, like, I know that's what's gotten us ahead. Like, instead of asking people, what can we do? We've made suggestions and taken initiative and done it and continue to do so. And that's the biggest thing, is action. If you're not taking action and if you're not finding ways to be of value, then you're, you know, not going to be seen as someone who's bringing value to the table, because you're just asking like pretty bland questions.
Yeah. And I'll add on that. I learned very young in my corporate career not to bring problems to people. So what I'm saying is bring solutions. You know, I can't go to my manager and say, I got this problem. What do I do? You got to bring the problem and then bring solutions and speak through it together. And that could carry forward in real estate. Not what do you want me to do? You know, what problems do you have? What am I going to do about it? You know, you got to bring solutions for why you're a good fit for them. And just being humble. You know, the number one thing between Nicky and I is we both have very humble beginnings. We've both had very hard work ethic. You know, sometimes I'm not home till 11 o'clock at night. I get up at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning. I'm at Home Depot for hours. So just having the work ethic, the patience, that knowing that if you're doing what you're passionate in, it will come. So patience, I guess, is another.
It's absolutely awesome advice. And I want to just replay it because it's just so powerful. And I'll attest, as someone who's been, that's how our relationship started. You guys are exactly right. I mean, that's where it started because so many people that want to get started with real estate investing, multifamily investing, they'll come to an event and they'll say, hey, I want to get started with real estate, or I want to become a multifamily investor. How can I help you? And that's great to hear. It really is.
Mhm.
But one, when you ask that question, you put the onus on the other person to figure out how you can help them. And they don't know how you can help them because they don't know what you can do.
Mhm.
So the answers you're going to get back are going to be fairly vague. And I recall, Nikki, when we first spoke about the multifamily club, and I don't even remember the full conversation at this point. I think you approached me and we had a conversation about it. And you said, hey, I can help organize the event and, help with the newsletter and help keep track of attendees and do communications. And I was like, cool. Right. And it kind of started with that, with a high level conversation. I think we worked through the details and you did it. That's the important thing. You took the next step. You came back and said, all right, here's my thoughts. Here's what I've laid out. And that really resonated more than anything else because you took the action. And I would say for anyone listening here, the two things that I want you to take away from what Nikki just talked about is first and foremost, figure out how you can help someone. Make that suggestion for them. Don't just ask, how can I help you? That's great, but that's not helpful. Just asking someone how to help does not help. Take the action, figure out where you can add value, tell that person how you can add value, and then do it. And even if someone isn't asking for it, if you really think this is the person that can help you make that transition, help them anyway. Show up early to the meetup, show up early to the event and say, hey, man, I took the liberty of doing XYZ and present it. And they will be floored. Oh, you did what? Oh, okay. Hey, I downloaded the list of names and I made name tags. Wow, that was crazy that you did that. And you might get a little side eye, but taking that initiative is going to make you stand out. So if you really want to add value to someone, add real value to them. Figure out what that is. Don't ask them, how can I add value to them? You figure out their business. And there are only a couple of ways, first and foremost. So let me give you some more insights. If you're looking to add value to someone, it's either going to be helping them find deals, helping them find investors, helping them operate the deals that they have, or somehow helping them communicate the things that they do. I'll give you a very simple thing each and every person listening to this right now can do. If you're getting value from this conversation, you can rate this podcast, this episode. You can share it with other people. That's something very simple that you can do to add value. Now, if you want to take that up a couple levels, you can reach out. You can understand. You can EJC partners, right? You can leave a review for them, or you can recommend or go to their website, like their Facebook page. There's simple things like that. Then it escalates beyond that, right? I mean, to really understand what RJ is going through in his business, what Nicky's doing, what I'm doing, you can really start to dive in and figure out how you can add value to people. But it starts with really adding value, not just suggesting that, hey, I want to get going in multifamily and I know that you can help me. We know that. Figure out how you can help us. That way there could be an exchange of value there. Nicky, we talked a little about the Chicago Multifamily Club. Let's talk more about that. Maybe just explain what the Chicago Multifamily Club is, who we help, and, kind of your role in the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Chicago Multifamily Club, you and I pretty much took the reins on it starting about 3 years ago. And so we inherited that group. And from there, we've built it into this club that focuses in around multifamily real estate in Chicago. But we do have other topics that we talk about. And so within this group, we typically bring in a speaker. It's about 30 to 45 minutes of content, interview style, where we have yourself lead that interview, which is awesome. And then it's open networking. And we've grown from having 5 people around a table to now we have about 1,500 people in our networking group, give or take. And with that, what we've seen is people being able to build partnerships, people have the courage now, because they have this network, to go off on their own and dive into real estate. So we've seen so much success from this group, and we have beginners, we have people who are very experienced in the group, and it's just really evolved into this awesome, truly networking group where we work to build people up and build people's success within real estate. So, I mean, that's what my view of the group is. And I think it's going to continue to evolve now that, we're stuck at home. And so for our next meetup, our goal really is to focus in on a deal analysis, which I think we're going in on yours for that meetup, and then a hot seat, because we want people to continue to network even if we're stuck at home. So by giving people 5 to 10 minutes of time with a networking group to talk about what their problems are, what's their bottleneck right now, we think that's really going to build up more of that networking, which has given people so much success already while we are, stuck at home or whatnot.
Yeah, you can search Chicago Multifamily Club on Meetup as well as our Facebook group to learn more about the organization and join. And the thing that's really cool is it really is about serving people, right? I mean, we don't pitch, we don't go in there and try to sell anything. It's really about education, and it doesn't matter if you are completely new to real estate or you syndicated, 2,000 units. This is a great platform to connect and engage with other people, especially if you're a Midwest investor or looking to invest in Chicago. But a lot of what we're talking about applies nationwide. So it's a great platform. And I know, Nicky, for you, you've now kind of taken on the Chicago chapter of InvestHer. Tell me a little bit more about that.
So I was actually brought to it by Bree Schmidt, who I don't know if everyone knows her who's listening in, but she's an awesome real estate or point of contact in real estate in Chicago. But she looped me in, and this group is led by Liz Faircloth. And Liz Faircloth is an amazing woman in real estate. She's got a ton of multifamily properties, and she has the Real Estate InvestHer podcast. And so with that, I linked up with Liz, and she mentioned that she was looking for someone to lead the Chicago branch of this InvestHer network. And I started it along with 3 other amazing women who we've divvied up the roles. I learned from doing the Chicago Multifamily Club that there's power in numbers. And now we have someone who's specifically taking care of the emails. We're all looking for speakers, and then, other roles are divvied up. But this group is specifically catered to women. It's not just Chicago, though. We're based in Chicago, but people join from all over the United States. Our last meetup, we had someone from Florida. We've had people from other states too. But with this group, it is, again, about networking and giving back. There are no pitches. It's all about providing free resources of education. And then also helping women succeed in real estate. And one of the reasons why it was started is, I'm sure you've seen it at our meetups. There's not a ton of women who come to the meetups or who are in investing, real estate investing. And so this is a platform for women to speak, ask questions, and really just get ahead in this industry that is dominated by men. So I'm happy to support that and give a platform to these women in Chicago.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear that. Liz Faircloth was a guest back on episode 186, so you can check that out, where we talked about empowering women in real estate. And it's interesting that you talk about creating the platform for women to, feel more comfortable, feel more confident, be more open, and have an environment where there's more representation there. We did an episode very recently, episode 237, with Clive Davis, not the music mogul. And Clive talked about why representation matters. And I think the thing I love most about real estate is it really is an equalizer. It's a platform where you don't have to worry so much about politics. Certainly some of that comes into play. But if you are a hard worker, if you can, get the capital together, you can go out there and create something. But it helps to see people like you in those spaces. And as more and more people learn about the ways you can tap into real estate to create equity, to create passive income, to create wealth, and can transition a career, it just opens up the doors. But it helps to see people who look like you in those spaces. So I'm glad that you are also helping more women discover these opportunities and figure out how they can get involved with using real estate to grow their own portfolio. Hey, before we transition to our bullseye round, I want to come back around to working together as a couple. So obviously, you guys know this, but one of the questions and or challenges that I get all the time is about working together as a couple. In real estate, how do you balance it? There's a lot of stuff there that you are doing together. You have your relationship. Now you have your business, your working, your portfolio. How do you all manage kind of working together as a couple amongst everything else you do as a couple?
You want me to take?
I'll take it. So I think that it does go back to divvying up the roles. And that was a challenge in itself because, you want to take over everything. You want to try everything. But understanding what you're passionate about is really important. But also offboarding things that you're not interested in doing is important too. So neither one of us really like handling the books. So we have an accountant, so like being able to say, I don't like this and I need someone else to help and I'm willing to pay for that is super important because it reduces the stress, not only in your business partnership, but in your romantic relationship. So I think like that's very key. We also divvy up different roles at home too. So not only in the business, but at home. So we know, I'm taking care of a certain amount of chores and he's taking care of a certain amount of chores. So it really makes it a lot smoother. We know what's expected of each other. And then on top of that, like making time for each other outside of business is really important. And just having that downtime where you're not just talking about what you're doing in real estate or I still work a 9 to 5, so I'm not just talking about that, but we're talking about other things that matter, our families, our almost 3 dogs. Yeah. And so, it's just making the appropriate time for different things in your life and divvying up the tasks. So that's really what's helped us. We're growing as a couple, we're growing as business partners, and there's times where we don't always see eye to eye, but having one more thing I'll add is that open communication and really being able to communicate soundly and strongly with each other and be blunt about things even is really important to having an understanding in a business relationship and, our personal relationship.
RJ, what's your thoughts? Anything to add there?
Well, 100% the communication. So whether it's business or personal relationships, communication is one of the things that I need to become stronger in. But, in my master's program, they were talking about it was always the breakdown of communication always causes problems. Large organizations, small organizations, and now I'm seeing it in relationships too. So just because you're really stressed one day, I come home at 8 o'clock, all I could do is talk about work. Well, I need to talk about not just what happened at work. I need to talk about how I'm feeling about what happened at work. And then I also have to open up the lines of communication to hear about her day, because there's always 2 sides to a story or 4 sides to a story, what happened, what I'm thinking, what happened to her, and what she's thinking. And, really taking time to make sure that you're breaking it down beyond just the work, because then you don't want just work relationship, because that gets really draining. It could become toxic really fast. You start to miss out on why you really love each other. So, again, we're not perfect. By no means do we want to paint that we're this perfect power couple, etc. It's all about learning, growing, being patient. So thankfully, I have a very patient wife. I'm not very communicative, but, sometimes it takes her yelling at me to be like, oh, all right. Yeah, I'm an idiot. You're right. You're 100% right. So
I love it, man. Well, listen, you're not an idiot. Okay. It's okay. You're not an idiot. Here's what I heard you guys say in 4 steps, right? First of all, communication is key. Make sure you keep the lines of communication open. That's going to make it easier to work together as a couple as well as business partners. The second thing is to have clear roles for each other in the business. What are you going to do? What are you not going to do? And the stuff neither of you like to do, outsource it. whether it's in the business or at home. And I think that's a really key point, because I think a lot of couples get stressed over, especially when they work together, because maybe someone's not doing something in the business when neither person really wants to do it. So if you can just identify that up front, outsource it, even at home. If there are chores that you're just like, dude, I'm not doing that. Like if you can outsource that, just alleviate it from everyone. Yes, it costs money. I get it, but it's worth the peace of mind if you can outsource that task. And the last thing, you didn't really say this, but the way I took it was, you can't outsource the romance, right? So that's the one thing you can't delegate to someone else. You can't outsource that. So make sure you make time for each other, no matter what's going on, to keep the relationship strong. You want a partner in life, not just a business partner. Let's transition to our bullseye round. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that set you up for later success.
Yeah.
So with this, it was taking on a job role that I thought was going to be amazing. I thought I found a mentor. I thought I was going to have my end all be all. He was exactly what I wanted to be. And then what happened is it all fell apart. He oversold the role. He wasn't giving me the mentorship, everything like that. And last minute I was struggling, like, what am I going to do now? You know, I left a 6-figure job to really help and propel somebody that I thought was going to be my end all be all. And just taking from these negative experiences and overcoming them. And I think my whole life has been overcoming negative experiences, you know, big or small, but just taking that and carrying it forward and putting it into something productive. So there's all those motivational quotes out there. You know, it's not about getting knocked down. It's about how many times you get up. Same thing, you know, and it's so that patience, that drive, that determination. Yes, you could be down for a little bit, but you have to take your mental space and bring it somewhere positive and drive forward to what's next, because nobody else is going to do that except for you. So
give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business. And in this case, I want to give a little caveat to say something that kind of helps you two communicate with each other.
For us, so this is really simple, but we use Google Sheets and Google Docs a lot. And what's the nicest thing about that is we can share it with our partners that we're working with on deals with. We can share it with each other, and we don't always have to communicate. We can put like little comments in there. So it's a really basic tool, but it's something that I love. And anytime I'm running numbers, it's in a Google Sheet, because then I can share it with anyone that needs to see it. We can make changes as we go. He can view it really quickly from his phone because there's an app in there. So it allows us to communicate about the things we're working on without having to pick up the phone or text each other, text the group. It just makes our lives so much easier, and it's such a basic free tool.
Give me the book you've gifted or recommended the most in the last year.
I want to say Miracle Mornings. So it was actually gifted to Nicky. And I grabbed that and I read it, and I was reading it to her in the mornings. I was like, you got to get on this. So Miracle Mornings, which is really just another way to say power of habits, you know, just making sure that you're swallowing the frog in the morning. You're doing what you have to do in the mornings to really set you up for success for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the month. So that really changed my life. I hope it's changed a lot of people's lives, because I've actually sent it to probably 4 or 5 different people now.
Mm-hmm. I'm still working on my Miracle Morning.
Oh, good. What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew when you were starting out?
Man, I think that with the construction piece, because since we did our house hack, don't go with materials just because they make your budget look better. Go for the nicer flooring, the nicer cabinets. You don't want to waste, or you don't want to go cheap, because we've had a lot of struggles with that. And now we know, and now we don't do that. But with our first property, I mean, if you saw the materials we were looking at, you'd think we were crazy. And we were so inexperienced, and we were trying to save money. But in the long run, that costs you a lot more money. So I know they say it in like every book, every podcast, but it's true. go with the better products.
I'm still laughing over. I'm 100% laughing at some of the stuff that we, put in the house. But it also has to do with the contractors, because a lot of people don't want to put in that sweat equity. Don't go with the cheapest contractor. You're going to find out every single time that, he's cheap for a reason. So,
what are you curious about right now?
For me, it's been syndication. So I've been studying a lot about that, learning new analysis spreadsheets, because that's really challenging. If you've ever taken the time to look at a spreadsheet and really try and understand what the numbers mean, that's challenging when it's a larger spreadsheet like for syndication. So taking the time to do that. So I've been really curious around those areas. And then my curiosity always leads me to what can I do for others to become a valuable asset. So that's why I'm studying all this, because I want to be able to provide these people who have so much more experience than me with a resource of someone who does know what they're doing when it comes to this analysis, and someone who is well versed in syndication. So that's what I'm curious in right now, and the reason why is I want to link up with people who know more than me, but I also want to be a strategic resource for them.
I was having a baby. I was like, how are we going to do this? I'm so curious how this is going to work out. Like, we got so much stuff going on. It's never right time.
Well, our parents are all here, so we're going to hopefully lean on them.
All right. Sounds like there's some news and some things you guys are working on there. So amazing. All right. Give me the best place to grab a bite in Chicago.
We're huge fans of Chinatown, so it's going to be Triple Crown. It's going to be some restaurant in Chinatown, whether it's pho or just traditional Chinese food. That's our go-to, and I always recommend it because a lot of people are scared to go there, scared to experience it, but it's amazing experience, ambiance, and food. So that's for me.
Well, I'm going to add one more, because we live in Bronzeville now. I love the neighborhood. I love the architecture. And if you're looking for an amazing meal down here, you got to hit up Alice's Barbecue. They have, I think, the best barbecue in Chicago. There's always a line out the door, even during like COVID. And you can only pick it up to go, but it is delicious.
Yep.
All right. I have to hit that up next time I'm in town. Well, I appreciate you guys taking some time to come on Target Market Insights. The takeaways that I have are, if you are looking to, build a partnership, especially as a couple, make sure you have clarity in the communication, divvy up the roles and responsibilities, and grow from there. When we talk about construction, just getting getting clarity in, the scope of work, who's doing what's included, and get some clarity and some feedback from your contractor as far as what's included and what kind of things could derail a project. Nicky, you talked about partnerships and how important partnerships are in adding value to your partners. What can you do? And take that action. Be proactive. Don't just, blindly suggest, hey, how can I help? But actually have a game plan and figure out how you can help someone and then follow up and do it. This was great talking to you both. We're going to do a little bit of bonus footage, so stick around and we're going to talk a little bit more. But thank you for coming on Target Market Insights, the multifamily and marketing show.
Thank you, John.
Great time. See ya.